Hello, 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 YouTube. Welcome back to Real Talk Therapy with your girl, Ebony. It's a new week, new day, new start, new conversations that we're going to have this week. Hope you guys had a very good weekend and you did some stuff that pertain to your self-care, some things to help you get motivated to get moving throughout this week so that you could continue to roll through your uncharted waters. And let's go ahead and get into this thing for today. Our t-shirt for today, and I hope you guys can see this pretty good, but it says back to basics, and then we have Real Therapy 101. Wearing a little baby blue, powder blue, whatever you want to call that, and black today. And as we get to our little corner and get where I can show you guys the bag of choice for today. Of course, with baby blue, with powder blue, Coach duffel. And I do have the wallet to match in there, so I forget sometimes that with some of my bags I have matching wallets, but we'll try to, like I said, start incorporating some pictures either before or after of the whole ensemble of what I wear each day to go along with the bag of the day. And of course, for our kicks of the day, we're wearing some all black Vapor Max. Matching the pants and stuff for today. But this week on Real Talk Therapy, we're going to talk about going back to those basics, back to those things that we originated with, where we started, how to make sure as you're maneuvering through your treatment, whether it's for a mental health diagnosis and or a substance abuse diagnosis, that you are able to establish what we call boundaries. Boundaries are simply rules, simply things that, boundaries can be personal and or emotional. And so the reason why we're titling this week's conversation Back to Basics is that sometimes in order for us to be able to set those boundaries and be able to know what it is that we will and will not deal with, and letting other people know what we will or will not deal with, you got to go back and learn what it is that you will and will not deal with. And there's ways to let people know what your boundaries are. And usually the minute that we cross our boundaries, we end up allowing things to come into our boat, to come into our atmosphere, to come into our space that's not wanted. But because we don't know how to deal with it, and we don't know how to say, hey, I didn't want that, you end up having a hard time maneuvering through what it is that you need to do because you did not establish those boundaries early on. You did not set those things in stone and put those things in place early on, prior to entering into this new portion and or version of your life. And so the clinical training and pieces for those of us that are certified or licensed in the area of providing treatment goes along with ethics and boundaries. And so we'll get into the ethics part a little bit later this week. But today, we're just going to take it back to 101. Anytime that you do something for the first time, when you learn something, when we were in college, school, different things, you had basic math or, it's 101. It's the first time that you're introduced to some of these things. And boundaries for a lot of us were not established until we went to school for the first time. And I don't know if you guys can remember what kindergarten was like for you, but I do. I remember kindergarten. I remember my teachers, Miss Tilson and Miss Jackson. I remember a lot of my classmates. I told you guys, me and my best friend met in kindergarten. We were in the same kindergarten class. And like I said, that's my bestie from that day to this one. And in kindergarten, we were taught some basic boundary skills. And the one that sticks out the most was keep all hands, feet, and other objects to yourself. So, of course, in kindergarten, we didn't know what that meant. We just knew that, you sat around on this carpet, you sat down Indian style, and, you learn things. I can remember some stories that were told to us. I can remember some centers and some stations over at North Lawrenceburg Primary. I can remember what it was like to go to recess. But as I think about going back to basics, when it comes to your treatment, when it comes to you having these conversations about the things that are going on in your life that may be boundaries and or triggers, remember we were going to talk about those things that keep you from being able to move forward. And like I said, some boundaries, there are some people who do not like to be touched, but they don't know how to tell people that. So I have learned to ask that because I'm touchy-feely. If you're crying around me, my natural instinct is to get you some Kleenex, come put my hand on your shoulder and see if you're okay. I'm also a hugger. And I hug with a purpose. So if I ever put my arms around you, I mean it. And you'll be able to feel it. But don't hug everybody, now. I'm just a hugger because I have boundaries in my space too. But if it's somebody I love, somebody I care about, somebody I haven't seen, when I embrace you, you feel that embrace. When I'm working with individuals and when you're going through something and I'm right there with you as that support system, I'm on that boat with you, there will be times where I may want to come and say, are you okay? But I've learned before doing that to say, hey, are you okay with being touched while you're feeling this way? Are you okay with, anything? You have to ask people if they're okay. You have to know what their boundaries are. And it's okay to say, no, I don't want you to touch me. Or no, I would like for you to stay 6 feet away. We got into that whole 6 feet genre during COVID. And people were like, give me my 6 feet. And I'm going to tell you, during COVID, it was important to me that you stay 6 feet away because I believed that from 6 feet away, I couldn't get COVID from you. Now I'm right back in line beside the people or behind whoever, or, we're right back in these crowds. And the same thing is going on now. Don't get it twisted. COVID is still out there. But it was just that I had a whole new set of boundaries when it came, to COVID. And so there are some people out here, you call them germaphobes, you say they're OCD or what have you, but there are some people who truly already had those things set before COVID because that's part of who they are. And we have to be able to know that and learn that about people. And what better way to learn what someone's boundaries are than to have a conversation with them to see if they even know what their boundaries are. To be able to, say, listen, I created this safe space for myself and I don't want you in it. I don't care what we got going on. I'd rather talk to you with my back turned. That's okay. It might be odd to you if that's not something you're accustomed to, but you have to learn to respect and find out what people's boundaries are. And in real life, in real talk, we will enter into friendships. We will enter into partnerships with businesses. We will enter into relationships. We will get married. We will date people, and we will never establish boundaries because we're having so much fun getting to know these people. And you don't establish your boundaries until something happens. You don't start saying what you like and don't like until something happens that you don't like. And now the person that's been getting to know you, building this friendship, went into business with you, said, yes, I'll marry you, or yes, we go together, or whatever the case may be. Now the individual is looking strange because it's like, hey, in the beginning, I didn't realize you had a problem with that. And so people pleasing comes with not respecting our own boundaries. And you have to set them. You know what you like and don't like. You know what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. You know what annoys you. And it's okay. You know, it's okay to say so. Wouldn't you rather say it from the beginning than to get knee deep into a situation and then something's about to blow up and now all of a sudden you want to say, hey, I never really liked cheese on my burger, but I just used to let you get me a cheeseburger and then I would scrape it off. And, you know, I'm lactose intolerant, so now I'm around here sick because I didn't want to tell you that I didn't want cheese on my burger because you were nice and I thought you were nice and I liked you and I thought it was okay and this, that, and the third. No, when you're ordering the food for the first time, hey, give me a hamburger. I don't eat cheese. I'm lactose intolerant. That is what building rapport is all about when you start to receive treatment for your mental health and or your substance abuse. You should be having a conversation with the therapist, with the licensed clinical social worker, with the licensed addiction specialist, with the certified alcohol and drug counselor, with the certified peer support specialist. You should be talking to them, or they should be engaging you in conversation to learn what your boundaries are. But you won't be able to communicate those things if you don't learn what your boundaries are. And so in kindergarten, we had a certain area of the school that we had to go into for recess. So, you know, if you went in a line and once we got out there, they let us run wild. But if we went in another area, there were two teachers. So you had the teacher and the teacher's aide. Now, both of them supposed to be watching you. And I can't remember how many people were in my kindergarten class, but I do know now that a lot of kindergarten teachers and a lot of teachers nationwide, you guys are to the brink and sometimes over the amount of kids that you can have, and you don't always have a teacher's aide or someone else in there with you. And so I salute you, hats off to you, because you're doing an amazing job under the conditions that you have to work within. But back in when I was in kindergarten, it was always Miss Tilson and Miss Jackson. And in the area that we could play in, you would have one in one place and you would have the other in another place. And there was a fence around the front because we were in the front area of the school, so the road was right there. And the fence was supposed to keep us from getting into the highway. Now, we're little. Well, most of us was little. I think I was, I don't know. I've been tall all my life, so I can't really remember. But I can just remember some kids were shorter and smaller than I was in kindergarten. And so if they really wanted to get between that wood and get on the other side of that fence, they could. Just like I could. It would have required me to climb and step over it. But if we really wanted to get on the other side of that fence, we could. Because you had Miss Tilson, who was kind of closer to the classroom, and Miss Jackson, who was back towards the fence, but we were small and fast. So if we really wanted to get away, nothing was stopping us. But because those two ladies taught us boundaries, they taught us when we go out here, here is where you are to go. Here is what's allowed for you to do. They didn't have to explain it. If you went on the other side of that gate, you ran into the potential of getting hit or hurt, or, you know, we wouldn't be able to get to you. They didn't have to go into detail of why we had to stay within the area that we were in. And that's because at our age, it didn't require all of those details. You should have been taught at home that when an adult tells you to do something, as long as it's not something that I've taught you is wrong for adults to do to you, if an adult tells you to do something, you're supposed to listen. So I don't have any memory of any of my classmates going on the other side of that fence. I just can recall us going out there playing, having a good time right there within the area, within the boundary that we were instructed to stay within. That way, neither teacher had to go out of their way to save us from danger that we didn't even know was ahead. So when you're setting boundaries, it keeps you from dealing with problems that you don't foresee in a relationship or in a group setting, if you're in a group setting, or on your job, or with your church members, or with your family. You set your boundaries. Hey guys, this is what I'm comfortable with. And I don't have to go along to get along. I love you, but I'm going to stay over here. When you get back, I'm going to be over here. But what do a lot of us do? We go along to get along. So if our loved one wants to jump the fence and they don't know what the dangers are on the other end, all right, I'm going to jump the fence with you. Now, here's the caveat to that. Sometimes you go following behind people that when danger comes, they're going to look out for themselves and they're going to leave your behind out there. So when you start going outside the confines of what you're comfortable with, you better make sure that you can take care of you. Everybody that wear the same jersey don't necessarily play for the same team. We all know that some people on some of these sports teams have thrown games because they've been promised something that nobody else on the team is going to get. Believe it or not, there are hidden agendas. So you got to be on your P's and Q's, as they say. You got to know your surroundings. And now that you're no longer in kindergarten, you can go back to that basic rule of this is what you do when we're outside. When we're inside, you're going to keep your hands, your feet, and all other objects that belong to you to yourself. Because if I go to touch Sally Sue, and Sally Sue don't want to be touched, in kindergarten, Sally Sue going to tell you. In our 40s, Sally Sue might want to fight. So you got to go back to basics. Just because it works for you doesn't mean it has to work for somebody else. It's not supposed to. Remember, we're individuals. We're uniquely made. We're different. So you will find some people who like some of the same things that you like, but they still like those things in their own way. So when you're establishing boundaries, when you go back to this basic foundation and having these real talk conversations, whether it is with a coworker, a husband or wife, a brother or sister, a mother or father, a friend or foe, you know, because sometimes your enemies are your friends and you don't know it yet. It'll come to light. But at some point when you're having those conversations, you got to know what to listen for. And what I mean by that is when I tell you that I like a hamburger, but every time you go to get lunch, you bring me back a cheeseburger, I got to try to decipher before I ask you, because now I'm at a place where I'm going to ask you. But before I would ask you, I would try to sound it out and be like, okay, did they not hear me when I said I'm lactose intolerant and I don't eat cheese and I just want a hamburger? Or do they not care? Some people don't care what your preference is. And so now you have the right to say, nah, I don't need you to get me no lunch today because I kept telling you that I didn't eat cheese, I just want a hamburger. You kept bringing me a cheeseburger and I didn't know what that was about. It's different ways to do stuff. Or you could be gangster girly with it. Like I'll be, didn't I tell you I ain't want no cheeseburger? Now I'm going to give you your money back for this meal or what have you, but next time I'll go get my own. And I can't worry about how the person feels when I say that. Because I've told you what my boundary was, what my preference was. And you still wanted to get me what you wanted to get me. We can't do that. Some of us try to make people become images of us. You know, there's a rap song, I can't remember who made it, and when I do, I'll try to reference it again, but there's a rap song that says, you know, she's a reflection of me. Why do you want a reflection of you? Why? You should want someone that brings out the best in you. Opposites attract. It's natural law. A lot of times, two peas in a pod don't always go together. And if you've ever shelled peas, in my lifetime, I have had to shell peas. I thank God I ain't never have to go out there and pick them. But when you shell a pea, every pea in some of those pods are not green. Some peas in that pod come out brown already. Some of them are rotten in that pod. So two peas in a pod do not always go together. There is an exception to that rule. You gotta be more practical, and you gotta be more open to exploring stuff outside of what you were taught, what you programmed yourself to believe, and what your way and your thing is. We all say it. My thing is this. Or, if it were me. We all say it. And I'm trying to become more conscious of when I say it. Because a lot of times when we use that term, the circumstances that we're trying to describe would never even apply to us. Because you're not the person that you're talking about. The situations that they're in, you wouldn't be in. I think his name is Fredo or Fredo Bang in the song Top that he has. He says, most storms that I've weathered and I walked, most couldn't walk. So we can walk our walk, but what somebody else is going through, we can't do that because we weren't built for it. It wasn't our walk to take. So you got to learn who you are, what your boundaries are, set them, vocalize them, and communicate them. And we're going to talk about that this week as we go back to basics. We're going to talk about how to communicate without being passive and without being aggressive and without being passive aggressive. Say what you mean what you say, and make sure people know, hey, look, I'm not trying to come down on you, or I don't, this is just who and how I am. When I'm talking to y'all and y'all hear me get, elevated and animated, and if something that I'm really passionate about, you can hear it, you can see it. My actions are different. My voice goes up and down. I'm all into it. But some people would look at the tone of my voice as, dang, she's aggressive. She loud. I'm just telling you how I feel. And that's another thing. You're not responsible for how people receive you. But you are responsible for what you're trying to get people to receive. Because if you don't convey the message correctly, if they don't know what your boundaries are, they're going to ask you to go outside of what's comfortable for you. And once you do that, and you start falling behind, you're going to come across some people that are going to wait for you, and you're going to come across some people who are going to look back and be like, look, if you couldn't handle it, you shouldn't have came. Not giving you all of that before they asked you to jump over that fence. So, with that being the start of our week, with that being where we are, with our Real Talk Therapy and where we're going with that today, we have to be able to know, what are my boundaries? And once I know what my boundaries are, how do I communicate them to other people so that they know what they are, so that I can build a real foundation for my friendships, my relationships, whether they're work, personal, sociable, places that I'm going to go, places I don't feel comfortable going, things that I want to be involved in, things I don't want to be involved in, things I want to do, things I don't want to do. You have to get to a place where you're okay and others understand where you are and why you're there. And then now they get to know who you really are, instead of getting to see that stuff come out when things aren't quite going your way or their way or the way that you thought they would go. So please come back tomorrow. I want to thank all of you guys that have subscribed since last week. Want to thank you all for commenting, sharing. So please continue to link, comment, subscribe, and share so that we can continue to take this thing to the new heights that we want to take them to. Bear with your girl as I continue to work on editing. Well, you know, I don't really edit, but inserting different things that I want you guys to see. Like I said, I do want to start showing a picture where you'll see the whole ensemble, the bag, and everything, you know, that goes along with it. I'm still working on trying to connect with Coach and Lil Wayne. That has not changed. We'll continue to have these conversations and go through these uncharted waters using songs, using movies, you know, using experiences. So, you know, as you can see, this week is Back to Basics 101, going back to those things that helped us build our foundation that we forgot as we grew up, but can apply to real life now. And that's real talk. I appreciate you guys. See you tomorrow.